Hey, ladies and gentlemen, and now we're going to be talking about two words, which is retaliate and despite. Here, okay? So now, retaliate is make an attack or assault in return for a similar attack. The blow stung and she retaliated immediately. Similar. Fight back, strike back, hit back, respond, react, reply, reciprocate, counterattack, return fire, return the compliment, put up a fight, take the bait, rise to the bait, return like for like, get back at someone, get tit for tat, give as good as one gets, let someone see how it feels, have, get, take one's revenge, take, exact, wreak revenge, be revenged, revenge oneself, avenge oneself, take reprisals, get even the score, settle the score, settle account, pay someone out, repay someone, exact retribution, give someone their comeuppance, COMEUPPANCE. Never heard of that. Get one's own back. Opposite. Turn the other cheek. Archaic. Repay an injury or insult in kind. They used their abilities to retaliate the injury. Retaliate is to hurt someone or do something harmful to someone because they have done or said something harmful to you. If someone insults you, don't retaliate, as it only makes the situation worse. The demonstrators threw rocks at the police, who retaliated by firing blanks into the crowd. The terrorists retaliated against the government with a bomb attack. Retaliate is to hurt someone or do something harmful to someone because that person has done or said something harmful to you. His first instinct was to retaliate against the attacks. She said she was fired in retaliation for her reports of illegal business practices earlier this year. Retaliate. After the challenge, it didn't take them long to retaliate. I also had to learn how to take in feedback without crumbling or retaliating, and how to accept the humanness in us all, myself included. If a man hit him, he was the right to retaliate in self-defense. There are indeed umps who possess an unexpected ability to take a ribbing without retaliating. Then they wonder why they were retaliated against. Retaliating, synonyms of retaliate, intransitive verb. To return like for like, especially to get revenge, transitive verb. To repay in kind, retaliate an injury. Retaliate means something in response to. If Zach keeps throwing darts at me, I'm going to retaliate. To retaliate means to get back at someone, usually through a counterattack. Ned got hit with a cream pie, then he retaliated by throwing a bucket of jello at his attackers. 1. Verb. Make a counterattack and return like for like, especially evil for evil. Synonyms: strike back. Number 2. Verb. Take revenge for a perceived wrong. Synonyms: avenge, revenge. Intransitive verb. If you retaliate when someone harms or annoys you, you do something which harms or annoys them in return. I was sorely tempted to retaliate it. The company would retaliate against employees who joined a union. Synonyms: pay someone back, hit back, strike back, reciprocate. That's it. Retaliate is to do something in response to an action done to oneself or an associate, especially to attack or injure someone as a response to a hurtful action. Synonyms, which is strike back, avenge, revenge, settle, return, requite, repay. The synonyms, which is strike, strike back, avenge, revenge, settle, return, requite, repay. That's what it is. Antonyms is to sympathize, forgive, pardon, turn the other cheek. The enemy would retaliate by executing their prisoners. Retaliate is to hurt someone or do something harmful to someone because they have done or said something harmful to you. And synonyms like retaliate means to strike back, take revenge for a perceived wrong. Like a strike back, like if you want to fight back, like if you want to get back at it, like if you want to get back at them, retaliate, to get back at them, to strike back. That's what it is. Take revenge for a perceived wrong. Oh, here it is. To retaliate means to get back at someone. 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 That's what that means, okay? So now, next one here, which is despite. So now we're going to talking about despite here. So despite is without being affected by, in spite of. He remains a great leader despite age and infirmity. So number one, the feeling or attitude of despising someone or something, contempt. So similar, which is in spite of, notwithstanding, regardless of, in defiance of, without being affected by, in the face of, for all, even with, undeterred by. Opposite, which is because of, noun, archaic. Number one, outrage, injury, the despite done by him to the holy relics. Number two, contempt, disdain. The theater only earns my despite. Synonyms of despite: in spite of, played despite an injury. Barbershop, the movie. Isaac said, this is what Isaac said. Isaac said, hey man, let me tell you something. Just because you go to fancy college, don't make it better than me. Don't make it better than no one. I probably won't ever even go to school, but I'm gonna do something with my life. I'm gonna have me a business. I'm opening up a shop. And despite what you may think, I pretended to be someone I saw on TV. This is who I am. And whether like it or not, I'm gonna be like this tomorrow. He said, and despite what you may think? That's what he said. Without taking any notice of or being influenced by, not prevented by, I still enjoy the week despite the weather, despite repeated assurances, assurances, that the product is safe. Many people have stopped buying it. He managed to eat a big lunch despite having eaten an enormous breakfast. Despite yourself. Despite yourself. If you do something despite yourself, you do it although you do not want to, or although you know you should not. He laughed despite himself. She took the money from her mother's purse despite herself. He was attracted to Rachel despite himself. She smiled despite herself. He became a great success almost despite himself. Despite myself, I warmed to him. Fewer examples. Trains are still running despite the snow. The pop festival passed off peacefully despite the fears of local residents. The overall situation is good despite a few minor problems. He was able to lead a normal life despite the illness. She manages to stay cheerful despite everything. Grammar, in spite of and despite of and despite, in spite of and despite are prepositional expressions. Despite is without being influenced or prevented by. The game continued despite the rain. Despite her illness, she came to work. But despite the season, we still need to eat and drink. Despite whatever diet fad comes about next week or the week after, together they produce 1/3 of global gross domestic product despite having only 13% of the world's population. Because despite the inexorable toll children take on our finances, our patience, our emotions, and our energy reserves, they really are pretty great. The establishment victories come despite political wins that favored outsiders. They weren't overweight, and despite eating sugar every day, they weren't sick. They are not bad scenes necessarily, but they end up adding little despite taking up a significant portion of the episode. Despite means without being affected by. He is a good baseball player despite being 50 years old. Despite means without being prevented by. Despite the rain, we enjoyed the beach. Despite means without being affected. I was not nervous despite of speaking in front of a big crowd. Despite the feeling means the feeling has no influence over the outcome. So, okay. I'm in the right track here. Okay, so number 1, the feeling or attitude of despising someone or something, contempt. Number 2, malice, spite. Number 3, an act showing contempt or defiance. Detriment, disadvantage. I know of no government which stands to its obligations, even in its own despite, more solidly. Despited, despiting. Transitive verb. Number 1, archaic, to treat with contempt. Number 2, obsolete, to provoke to anger, vex. Phrases, in despite of, in spite of. Despite is without taking any notice of or being influenced by, not prevented. Despite means without taking any notice of or being influenced by, not prevented. Despite means without taking any notice of or being influenced by, not prevented. That's what that means. Of the word despite. By preposition, despite the weather, I still enjoyed the week. Despite the truth, it means the truth has no influence over the outcome. All right, folks, that's it. The lesson is over. Hope you guys enjoyed the lesson.